Hello and welcome to our first carrot update brought to you by Parfleet. I'm here with the one, the only Sultan of Sonar, Zach Strickland. Zach, let's jump into it.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's jump right into these tender rejection rates for each of our main three modes here. Van represented in the blue, the green line, of course, your flatbed tender rejection index that you love, Anthony, and the yellow line here is the refrigerated tender rejection rate. So if you look back here at our lines here, we're seeing a stabilization. It's almost like a floor has been hit for each of the van and refrigerated side, and even for the Anthony index. The flatbed rejection rate there has kind of stabilized around this 29 to 30% rate. Of course, still leading the way in terms of overall rejection rates. That flatbed sector is still relatively tight. The refrigerated sector, however, almost like it just hit a ground and hasn't moved from that 11.1% for the last several days. And the van side running aground right around 8.5%. Now, I guess the big question here, Anthony, is will the market continue to show signs of stabilization? Will we start to see that summer seasonality push? Now, we're going to have Craig on here in a little while. He's got some theories about that. But for now, let's just look at what we've got. We've kind of stopped in our tracks for the moment, the consistent decline. The rate of decline started kind of slowing down in April, and now it's almost an abrupt floor that we've hit. We talked about tender volumes. Let's go ahead and look at that chart here now that we've covered the tender rejection rates. But tender volumes also hitting a floor. Now, they've hit a floor since around Easter. We saw that little Easter basket that we talked about over the last 2 weeks or so. And then coming out of Easter, though, that trend line that we were seeing before, from about March 9th or so, is gone. So now we're on a straight even path. Now, the big question here is, what type of freight are we talking about? And it has changed a little bit. We talked about Ontario yesterday. Short haul volume growth definitely driving a lot of these tender volumes. It's no longer a lot of that long haul freight, because over time, long haul freight kind of starts ramping back up as those inventories start to dwindle a little bit more. And you've talked to Zach Rogers about it. Inventories are pretty strong right now.
And speaking about some of the points yesterday, looking at some of that short haul stuff, also a potential reshuffling of goods just to kind of make use of that lack of inventory and trying to get places in the best position. Is that right?
Yeah, so reshuffling of goods. I'm glad you said that, because there's two things here to take out of this. And reshuffling, one, to get it out of the way. But two, the type of goods that we have over-ordered, that's a seasonal freight. That's stuff that people were ordering during the pandemic. Preferences have started to change. It doesn't mean that we're going to have the right inventory for later in the year. Now, we're going to talk about this in a little bit more detail a little later, but this is not over. We may go into this easing period or whatnot, but it's certainly not like one of those traditional moments like we saw in 2019, where everything just kind of the wind was taken out of the sails. The industrial sector kind of fell apart a little bit. That overspending that we saw, a lot of pull forward activity because of the trade war situation. It's not exactly a one-to-one scenario here, because we have all sorts of future situations. The industrial sector, of course, has its own agenda. It's doing its own thing right now, and the consumers, going back to those services, and that inflation is really having a big impact. But it doesn't mean that everybody's all set for the rest of the year.
Yeah, when we're looking at this is back to maybe a few weeks ago we were talking about there's so many different parts moving in so many different directions, and that we talk about certain segments that can have a recession while other segments just continue to boom. And it's just interesting to see how disconjointed some parts of the segment are.
Yeah, the fact that we're looking at the way the market is moving right now, just look at the OTVI this year. It drops, then it stops. It's almost like overnight activity. We're talking about dramatic changes in a short period of time. This is extremely concerning for an operation, because you're talking about volatility that's unpredictable, number one, and also extreme. You're talking about sharp turns in these charts, and these are aggregated charts, so they should not show a lot of volatility. And historically, you can see very little. Look back to 2019 here. This is what everybody's used to. Very little changes. Look at the last, February of 2020, dramatic change. This year, dramatic change. Lots of sharp angles in this chart in aggregate with a lot of density. That is extreme volatility.
That great first carrier update. Looking forward to all the rest throughout this morning and hearing from Craig a little bit later on. Right now, we're going to toss it back over to Sydney Edwards.